I want to shift to your viewpoints about Israel and the fact that you personally went there after October 7th and how that either impacted or maybe clarified how you view what's going on in the Middle East.
Well, I'm kind of old school in some ways, maybe in many ways. And I do believe that if you're a writer, a journalist, you've got to see things with your own eyes. You've got to go to places. It's not enough to just opine or whatever, but that you need to see things. That's the tradition in which I was brought up. That's a tradition in which I come from. If you want to write about something, you have to try to go and see it. And I knew after the 7th of October, I was here in this city in New York when it happened. I knew that several things would happen, and one of them was I knew that the world would, particularly the world's media, would try to move on very fast from what had just happened and move on to the inevitability of the Israeli response, or the revenge, as much of the media likes to portray it whenever it's the Jewish state acting. I thought that they would move on fast, which meant that the full horrors of thousands of terrorists invading Israel and raping and murdering their way through the south of the country would be forgotten about. I didn't want that to happen. I wanted to go and find out what had happened, collect the stories, speak to the survivors, go to the sites of the atrocities and much more. And yes, of course, that made a huge impact on me because it's, among other things, it reminds you that anyone, again, going back to that sort of but qualification, there needs to be no qualification to say what happened on October the 7th was unjustifiable, barbaric, atrocious, many other words. You don't need to dig around for qualifiers or anything else, so I don't think you do. So that's one thing that I thought was important to do. I wanted to see Israel's response up close. And I also wanted to reflect on this thing of why it was that so many people in America saw an atrocity like October the 7th and either found it in themselves to support it or to excuse it. That I thought from near the opening of this book, I describe an event in Times Square on October the 8th, where I went to the protest that happened there to go and observe it. And it was a protest as the massacre was still going on, in support of the massacre, in the middle of Times Square, in the middle of New York, in the middle of the city we're sitting in. And so I knew then, well, the world is going to face a very deep question here, which is what is happening in our midst. That means that when, for instance, young people at a dance party, the Nova dance party, are massacred in the early hours of the morning by terrorists, why are there so many people in America who think it's hard to know what side to be on, or to choose to be on the side of the rapists and the murderers and the torturers and the kidnappers? Yes, I mean, I found in the year or more that I spent in Israel after the 7th and in the surrounding areas, I found that in that year, I found a lot of things that were made a deep impression on me, but one was, strangely enough, and you'll understand this, and many of your viewers will understand this, but I found it extraordinary that actually a society which was at war was a more positive place to be than a society like America, which was at peace.
Hey, quick break from the main video. If you're finding value in these videos and want to support the channel, I've just launched memberships here on Culture Wolf. It's a simple way to help keep these videos and conversations going, and as a member, you'll get a few exclusive extras and early access to new content. There are 2 tiers to choose from, and every bit of support means I can keep making the thoughtful videos you come here for. If you're interested, just hit the join button below, or check out the membership introduction video for all the details. Alright, let's jump back in.
Was a more positive place to be than a society like America, which was at peace. That the people of Israel who had spent the year before the 7th tearing themselves apart over questions of judicial reform, and some which very few people, I think, actually understood, but that they were tearing themselves apart over this. Policemen in Israel were exhausted from working overtime with the demonstrations and much more, that suddenly the Israeli public were reminded of why they should be united, because there are much bigger threats out there than what they had spent the months ahead of the 7th worrying about. And when you think back to that, think of the retired army leaders, IAF and others, and indeed people who were meant to be called up to them, who said that they would not serve because of the judicial reform proposals by the Israeli government in 2022, 2023. I hope those people think now that what they did was not a good idea, to say that they would not protect their people because they disagreed on a political issue. Funnily enough, that all of that evaporated, disappeared. It has come back inevitably. Politics always does, but it disappeared after the 7th. It was a profound period of unity in Israel because they were reminded, and that's not just the Jewish population, but the Druze, Christians, Arabs, Muslims, many of the people I spoke to, they were reminded of what other people, in this case, first of all, Hamas and Islamic Jihad, would do to them. And I found something extraordinary in that unity, in that purpose, in that dedication to a cause, and a righteous cause, which was positive. Whereas, when I came back to America or visited South Africa, Australia, Canada, Britain, France, in that period, I saw these societies in which confusion seemed to just reign, moral confusion, historical confusion, obviously, but the principal one was moral confusion. Why in a city like New York, when the memorial exhibition to the Nova Party came about a year after the 7th, maybe, a year, 18 months, why that commemoration of the young people murdered should find itself the subject of protests in Manhattan, not far from where we're sitting, where speakers and crowds voiced open support for Hamas. See, that is in a way what I'm challenging people, challenging us all, myself included, to think about. How could that be? And in this city, of all places,